Okay, so in the previous video, I did the grenade and remote explosive pickup. Now I'm going to do the remote explosive in action. So first, I need to create some keys. So in my main character inputs, I need to create some buttons. So one's going to be called remote explosion or explosive, and I'm going to set it to R. So if you don't know how to do the new input system, if you don't know how to use it, then I have previous videos that explains how to set it up. So this R button is the button that's pressed in order to place the remote explosive on the ground or to wherever I'm trying to place it. So this is the button that's pressed for the player to drop one of these remote explosives wherever he is. I'm going to create another button called Detonate. So whatever explosives that are on the ground, this button, E, is going to be pressed to detonate all the remote explosives. So I'm using E and R because they're right beside the W, which is close to the index finger. So E is used for explode and R is for remote explosive. So sort of makes sense, I guess. So I got to go into the main character and I have to script all this. So I'm going to copy and paste some of the buttons from before. But before I do that, I need to create some variables call for the inputs, I think. So if you look here, there's run input, attack input, crouch input, equip input. So I'll just do a Boolean remote explosive input set to false, I think. Yeah, set to false. But I'm just leaving it for now. And then private bool detonate. Input. Okay. So yeah, I decided to set it all to false. And I'm also creating, the public game object remote explosive. So it knows what to instantiate as soon as I press the R button. And a Boolean called can place explosive. Boolean can detonate explosive. It's true. And by default, they're both true. I guess I do that so that I set it to false immediately, so I can only do it so that the player can't bang on the key several times. So I'm just going to copy and paste, and one's going to be remote explosive. If context performed, then remote explosive input is true, otherwise it's set to false. And also can control must be true. If it's set to false, then I can't do anything. I can't move the character around, I can't attack, I can't do anything. That has to be set to true. Copy and paste this again, and do this for the on. I want to call this on detonate. Same deal, but it's going to be detonate input true and detonate false. compile. So going back to the player character, and I need to set up in the player input, I need to set up those two buttons. So as you can see, there's a remote, explosive, and detonate at the bottom. So I need to first press the plus buttons for both, and then I'm going to drag and drop the main character because that's the object that has the script. And I'm going to do the drop down, go to the main character script, and select on remote explosive. And for the second one, character script on detonate. So I'm thinking. So at the bottom of the update, I'm doing remote explosive. I'm creating a function. I'm triggering a function, remote explosive, and I'm going to create another one, detonate. So the update's going to constantly trigger these two functions, and then I have to go create these functions at the bottom. So I'm going to go, I guess, right below the update, remote explosive. I have to do public void remote explosive. And then got to create detonate, public void detonate. So the remote explosive, if can, remote explosive input is equal to true, and can place explosive is equal to true, and I believe it's remote explosive count is greater than 0, I believe. Then immediately can place explosive is set to false, so that the player can't constantly bang on this button. They have to wait a little bit. So I'm instantiating, I'm going to copy and paste that instantiate code and paste it into that remote explosive script. I'm going to instantiate the remote explosive, I think. Yeah. public game object remote explosive. And also have to do the remote, the explosive instantiate location. Well, I could use the player's position, but this gives me the option to move it around. So explosive instantiate location. So instantiate remote explosive at the explosive instantiate position. And same for the rotation. Later on I realized I don't need that detonate because the detonation is going to happen in the script attached to the remote explosive, not this character. So I'm going to do a start coroutine can place explosive again. So below this function, I'm going to do I enumerator can place explosive again, and I think I give it a second or something. So yield return new, wait for seconds. And I do, 1 second. After 1 second, I set can place explosive to true again. So the player can only place a remote explosive once every second. Has to wait a second in between. This detonate, I realized I don't need it in here. The detonation happens inside the remote explosive. The remote explosive count also is minus equal 1. So every time this button is pressed, I deduct 1 as long as the count is greater than 0. If it's smaller or equal to 0, then the count doesn't change. And then here I realize that I don't need the detonate, I think. And then I compile it. And I go back into the editor. So if I go to the script, there's two empty spots, so the remote explosive and the explosive instantiate location. So first I'm going to create the instantiate location. So zoom into the character again. I'm going to right click, create empty, explosive instantiate location. I set it to 0, 0, 0 in the position. Later I find that this doesn't work, so I change it later, but I need to drag and drop that into the slot at the bottom here. And gotta go to props. First, no, sorry, I have to create a remote explosive, an actual object that's going to be instantiated. Set it to 0, 0, and then drop that into the props prefab folder to create a prefab. Then I'm going to double click to open it up. So I'll bring the remote explosive out here. Actually, I don't need it, so I delete it. It's never in the scene until the player presses the R button. So I'm going to drag and drop the mesh into the prefab, and I'm going to set it to 0, 0, 0. Then I have to go and rotate it and reposition it so that it looks like it's lying on the floor. So when the player places it, doesn't like stand upright like that. It just like lays flat on the floor. That's pretty good. And I need to create a script. Oh, first I'm going to drag and drop it into that field. So I'm going to go back to the prefab folder of props, find the remote explosive, and drag and drop it. That was the wrong one, but I realized that later. So I'm going to create a new script called remote explosive. Open it up. This takes a while. So while it's compiling, I decided to do some scripting. So what I do is I think I go to the main character script, and I think I copy and paste one of the button inputs. And I paste it into the new remote explosive. So that way the detonate doesn't happen in the main character script, it happens in the remote explosive script. You have to grab the variables too. Oh, I erase all the variable that I don't need. I create a variable inside the remote explosive called detonate input equals false. And if button is pressed, then obviously the boolean is set to true. And also delete this function because it's not going to be detonated in the main character. Compile, go back to remote explosive. Go to compile. So after it's done compiling, I drag and drop the remote explosive script onto the prefab. And I open up grenade on ground, and I think I'm just gonna, the idea is just to copy and paste some of the stuff. Or is it grenade projectile? Oh, I'm getting reference to the character script. So using main character script, which is the namespace of the main character script, and I'm going to get all the variables that refers to the main character script. Copy paste into remote explosive, and going to get all the stuff in the start function. And I'm going to paste it in the update. So if detonate input equals true, can detonate, Boolean can detonate is true. So if detonate input is true and can detonate is also true, then first I need to set it to true by default. Then immediately, if the button is pressed, then can detonate is set to false, so that whatever is inside of that condition doesn't happen again and again. The player can't press the button again and again. So I'm copying the explosion, which is the particle, the explosion particle. And I'm pasting it into here. And I guess I'm also going to get the instantiate script or the code. And just plunk it in. So can detonate is set to false. It instantiates explosion. And then it destroys the game object. So if I compile, so I need to drag and drop the explosion. So in my particles prefab folder, there's an explosion that I created in a previous video. So I'm going to drag that in. And when I hit play, so immediately I'm going to, I think, walk up to all those little objects in front of me and pick up all those objects, I think, including the remote explosive, and you'll see the count go up to 5. So that means every time I press R, which I'm doing, you can see it flicker at the bottom of his foot, but it doesn't stay there. It disappears because I think his character collider is pushing it through the ground. I think that's what's happening, but I didn't even realize it at the moment. So what I do is I go here and I think it's something else. So first I need to create a player input. This is where I need to do the, so I have to do invoke Unity events. This is where I have to do the detonate button. So open up events, under player. Actually, I have the wrong, in the actions field, I have the wrong input system. So I have to drag and drop the input system that I created. This is the default one that comes with the with Unity. So I need to go to my input under main character and drag and drop it into actions. and that gives me the main character drop down, and I need to go all the way down to detonate and press the plus button. I drag and drop the remote explosive because that's the object that has the script, and I need to, under no function, going to go to player input. Oh, sorry, not player input, remote explosive. I'm in the wrong one right now. To go to remote explosive, up, yep, and then on detonate. So as long as there's remote explosives, and I press the detonate button, then they should all explode. And I'm also trying to see the sphere collider, I think, in the grenade. Has a size of 5.8 or something. But I'm going to play it to try it out, but every time I try to spawn or instantiate, you can see it flicker at the bottom of his feet, but it doesn't stay there. The solution was to move the instantiate location somewhere that's not colliding with his character controller. Right here, yeah, here I bring it out. Then I go up to the main character, and then I realize that I have the wrong object in the remote explosive. I've got the pickup 5, but it's supposed to be just the remote explosive, not the pickup. So I drag and drop that into the field. So now I can go and pick up the remote explosive pickup. The count goes up to 5. I go around, press the button, and if I press the button, you can see them placed behind him like he's taking a poop. And I press the detonate and they all go off. Press the other 3, detonate, they all go off. And if I press R again, none of them, I can't drop anymore because my count is 0. Now I have to go here and create, I think, a sphere collider. This is what's going to collide with the enemy. I found a different way. I did a video for explosive barrel, and I have a much better method for destroying surrounding enemies with an explosion. But here I use a sphere collider. So here I'm checking to see the grenade to see how I did it. Sphere collider, going to make it big, like the grenade was like 5.8 or something. No, this is the wrong grenade. This is a grenade projectile. I need the grenade on ground. So go to grenade on ground. That one's, the radius of that sphere collider is 5.8. Right there. And then I go back here and I make it not quite so big. A little remote explosive is probably not as powerful as a grenade. I'm not too sure. I have no idea. But I plunk it in just to see how big that sphere is. And it looks big enough for a tiny little explosive. So I need a sphere collider. So sphere, everything here I copy, I think. Yeah, copy and paste it into the remote explosive. And then I get all the code too. So these are all the variables. I already have an explosion, so I get rid of that. And it can explode. Here in the grenade, I have it in the enumerate or the start coroutine. But here, well, I guess I am doing IEnumerator. I'm copying whatever's in there in the so instead of detonating it there, so if detonate input is true and can detonate is true, then I trigger the start coroutine. And then in there, the IEnumerator has red squiggly lines. That's because I don't have I'm not using a Unity engine something system something, but I fix that later. So in the enemy troop, I'm looking for if collision grenade on ground. So grenade on ground is the tag. So I'm changing the name of it to explosive on ground, I think. So I delete it. Explosive on ground, so that I can make it more general, so I can apply it to other explosives besides like the grenade. So I changed the name of it to, it's already explosive on ground, which is good. I have to change the name of it in the script. And in the remote explosive, I change it to explosive on ground. So if game object explosive grenade on ground, then the enemy troop, the tag, if tag is equal to explosive on ground, then this enemy troop flies backwards. And I realize I don't need the references player, so I get rid of it. And I get rid of all that stuff in the update for the player main character script. So when those two are true, then can detonate is set to false, so that coroutine isn't triggered indefinitely. I tried retyping an IEnumerator to see if that helps it, but that doesn't work. I tried changing the name, which doesn't do anything either. So I try using the using system collections, which is the solution. The red underline goes away. So I have it after yield return new in 3 seconds. All that stuff happens. Enable sphere collider enabled. Can explode is set to true. And then instantiate particles. And can instantiate particles set to false so it doesn't happen again and again. And I have to change the name of these to remote explosive instead of grenade because I'm in the remote explosive script, not the grenade script. So I'm just going through this, take all my grenade stuff and just adapting it to the remote explosive. So if you want to know about how the grenade works, this is the exact same script and you can find it in the previous videos. So if I compile that, I'm dragging the remote explosive geometry into that slot because that's the one that has to disappear immediately. And I'm going to reactivate my enemy troop so that I can see him fly away. But when I hit play, I have a problem, I think. Oh, maybe not. So I grab my remote explosives and then I wait for him to come around. And as soon as he goes around, I drop some explosives. 1. So all of a sudden I'm above the ground because for some reason I didn't deactivate the sphere collider. Sphere collider should be by default disabled. I don't know why I'm trying it again. Yeah, I tried to stop, decided to stop it instead and check the prefab. So in the oh, I forgot to copy and paste the sphere collider equals get component sphere collider and paste that into the start. So compile that, and then I also go back into the editor and I go into my prefab and I set the sphere collider to false. And as I said before, the sphere collider method is one way to like blow enemies away with an explosive, but I found a better way with my explosive barrel that I did in another video. I think it's the video after this one. So I set the sphere collider to false, so it's disabled by default. So now if I do the same thing, I have to go and grab my explosives. So I have 5 of them now. So now if I go and drop them behind the enemy, they're not going to like push me up because the sphere collider is disabled. So I can go. So 1, 2, 3, and I'll wait for him to come around. And detonate. But there's, unfortunately, he gets blown back, but there's a delay because I forgot to change the delay because I copy and pasted everything from the grenade. Grenades, usually when you throw it, when you watch movies, a military soldier will throw a grenade, and then there will be like a slight pause before it goes off. But these ones should explode almost immediately. So instead of having that 3 seconds in the I enumerator, I should make it like 0.1. It should be like a tiny, tiny, tiny delay. So I go and change it to, I think, 0.1. So we'll grab my 5 explosives, run around, wait for him to come around, hide behind this little column. Then I'll drop them. 1, 2, 3. Detonate. Boom. Drop 2 more and detonate. And that's all I have for this video. So thanks for watching.